Hey, Jamie Stenhouse here, currently in Palm Springs, and today I want to talk about where do you find the time to write your processes? This is such a common question we hear on strategy sessions, on free consultations in regards to companies coming to us to help them out with their systems and their teams. So I thought I would provide a little bit of insight in regards to where do you find the time to create your processes? How do you create that time and space to ensure that any processes that you actually create are, of course, usable? All right, so for some reason, there seems to be a large separation between the idea of completing the work, so the tasks that you and your team are handling every single day for your internal operations, for your customers and clients, right? And between creating processes. For some reason, everyone thinks before they join us as a client, they assume that, well, I have to set aside time to sit down and write out all of my processes for everything. And there's a lot wrong with that thought. And I've talked about the order of processes, what processes to actually create, which ones you can ignore, in a previous recording that I've hyperlinked underneath this YouTube clip here. So, ignoring those ideas about which processes to create, in which order should I be creating them in, I will be touching on the time it takes to create processes and how to create that time. So when people set about creating processes, they think that they can block out 3 or 4 weeks and sit down and write all of them in a nice silent retreat or room or somewhere away from the chaos of daily operations. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because if you're creating processes away from what's happening, then you're trying to create a dream reality process, and that is that you're removing yourself from the duties to create a process in essentially a vacuum around things that aren't truly happening, around what you think happens, around what you have experienced recently, as opposed to what's currently happening today, right? For example, you could be trying to create a process around how to onboard a new client into your company, and you think that the client shows up on time, so you write that, and you think that the client brings all the info they need to start the journey, right? And clients are unpredictable, customers are late, things don't go as planned. And if you're trying to write your processes in isolation, away from the work, you'll be creating this process that's not associated to reality. So in saying that, where and how do you create time to write processes and procedures and protocols and all of that? Well, it is as you are completing the work. You see, there shouldn't be any separation between you or your team sending an email, writing an invoice, laying down concrete, completing a plumbing job right, completing a sales conversation, ordering inventory, any of the tasks that you and your team handle. As they're being handled and completed, use that task to write the process. You don't want to sit down and imagine a pretend scenario. What would this look like if it was the perfect process? No. You want to take a real life example, an actual task that is happening right now, and write your process around that, so that for 2 reasons. So the first is that the quality of the process is much more realistic. It's handling things that actually happen. It is designed around things that are actually occurring inside the task. And of course, I think this goes without saying, you would be recording the process from someone who can complete that process correctly, right? You're not simply recording anyone completing that task. You want someone who is highly skilled or someone who understands that task, duty, objective to complete it, so that you can record it off of them. So when you associate completing the work and writing processes as a single job, because it's one and the same, you would complete a step, write down that step. You would record that step, write down that step, so on and so on. Now, if you want to learn how to write processes properly, I can expand more on that. And if you want to hear that, feel free to comment below or send us an email, and we'll be happy to show you how that works. Now, to the time it takes. If you associate completing the task with actually writing the process, it means that the process will be much higher quality and it won't take any extra time. right? Because you're completing the job anyway. So since you're completing it, why not just capture that in a recording? And that should be all it takes. So it's not that you need to set aside extra time to write processes. It is that you need to prioritize which processes need to be written, and we have a recording of that linked below this one here. And then once you have that prioritization list, you then go about and complete those tasks as you would normally. You don't change anything unless it's incorrect. You just work through the task as you would normally. And as you are completing the task, then you record it, then you write a process around it. There's no separation between the work and writing a process. There's no need to create extra time. There's no need to block out 2 or 3 weeks to sit down with your whole team and think about what other processes and how should we write them out. That's how you create processes that are removed from reality, while also slowing down your whole organization, because you and your team have to stop and write things out and recall them from, well, how should it look? And what about this and that? It takes way too much more time, and you're usually left with a more incomplete process that is removed from reality. Create processes around the things that are actually happening, that are actually correct, that encompass all the uncertainties and randomness that happens in your operations. So there shouldn't be any separation between the work and writing a process. It ensures that you produce a lot higher quality process because it is grounded in reality, and you don't have to set aside extra time to create it, right? You just go about your normal operations, capturing processes as they occur. So no separation between completing the work, writing a process. They are one in the same. If you are completing the work, capture it, turn it into a process. If you have any questions, let me know.